I was actually interviewing for a lot of tech companies such as Amazon and Google and would make it to the final round interviews and I wouldn't get the final cut.
Welcome to an episode of Be Queens. We interview Asian American women, CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who built businesses from the ground up. We hope their ability to bring their vision to life inspires listeners to also realize their dreams, whether in business or elsewhere. I'm excited to speak to Jennie Locke today. Jennie is from Brooklyn, New York, and is now living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Jennie is looking to unlock the potential of her community as a founder of two real estate companies, Zen Coast Homes and Zen Coast University. Hi, Jennie. Welcome to Be Queens.
Hi, Jonah. I'm so glad to be here today.
I'm really excited to chat with you. We met through my partner, Chris, who I believe worked with you in buying a home. And I've only heard the most amazing things. I know you offer a lot of educational materials for people who are looking into real estate. So I'm really excited to dig into your story and learn about how you ended up building the businesses that you did. Before we kick off on your entrepreneurship journey, I'd love to learn more about your life story and how that's influenced some of the decisions you've made later in your life as you became an entrepreneur. Let's just start out with your childhood. What was your childhood like?
My parents immigrated from China in the 80s. So they came to America in their late teens, early 20s, and didn't really know any English. They worked and actually met at a clothing factory. They would work crazy hours, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. They had me and my brother, but all throughout growing up, they were working. So I remembered as a child going to school constantly after school and weekends. And that was our childcare and daycare in a sense. I started from middle school selling sneakers, also flipping sneakers because I was bored at home. Throughout my childhood, I remember being at home at the end of school to teach my teddy bears with their own white and black marble notebooks and teaching them all different things from math and other things. That led me into just really loving and being passionate about education and being able to teach others, like right now in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And with Asian parents, I don't know if you had the same, but we were not allowed to go to other people's houses or sleep over. It was more taboo. So I
Mm-hmm.
would just hang out with my teddy bears and sell sneakers back at home.
With your parents working so much, that must have given you, in one sense, a lot of independence or a lot of time to figure out your own things. You gravitated towards teaching your teddy bears and also flipping sneakers. And I think you also sold candy. Let's dig first into the teaching. Like, what about that do you think was fun for you, or what do you think naturally led you into that teaching area?
I actually would like to thank my dad for that because when he was in China, he was a teacher for elementary school of multiple different subjects. But when
Mm-hmm.
he immigrated here, he didn't really know English. So took a more labor intensive job in a clothing factory, sewing clothes. So I think being able to have him be a teacher, I didn't realize it was until later on. But
Yeah.
then now being able to give back as well too. There's a statistic where when you teach things, you also retain probably 90% versus when you just listen or read something, it's
Yeah.
only about 10 to 20%. So being able to teach, I'm able to actually learn it myself more.
So it sounds like even though your dad wasn't able to do that job here, it passed down innate
Mhm.
interest. I want to also ask about the sneakers. What was that about?
Growing up, we didn't really have an allowance. So I was like, okay, we got all of our red envelopes from Chinese New Year and just stashed that up. And that was our allowance for the year. So
Mm-hmm.
figure out, okay, how can I grow that money to be able to go on trips or do other things during middle school and high school?
Mm-hmm.
So I bought sneakers from eBay and different websites. I would just clean them up, take nicer photos with it, and resell them. It wasn't a huge profit, but it still was a hobby that I was able to make some money as a 12-year-old. And then in high school, I was able to sell candy, just buying from Costco in bulk, and then be able to sell it at school because we didn't really have vending machines or anything back then. So it was a fun way to be an entrepreneur like at a young age and didn't really think of it as like a sales job. But now I really appreciate it because everything in life is sales and you're selling your skills, selling your services.
I would say that's probably not a common thing that 12-year-olds do. So I'm curious, at that time you weren't like, oh, I'm doing sales. So I guess it purely came out of that incentive to want an allowance to be able to like enjoy life.
Yes, we didn't really go on that many trips, but if we wanted to go to Disneyland or if I want to buy my own toys, I would be able to use my own money from that versus just not having it and wanted to go after what I wanted. So
Yeah, your parents working a lot and not giving you an allowance. These constraints kind of force you to be more creative, how you're still going to be able to do the things that you want to do. And I feel like middle school, high school, there are a lot of things that you want to do, but a lot of times you don't have the funds. So it's so cool that you were able to figure out for yourself how to make that happen. And speaking of your parents, you mentioned 14-hour jobs, 24/7. So what were some of the things that you took away from seeing that as a kid?
I thought it was a way of life. And that's where I saw other immigrant families, their parents were either in restaurants or other things. I'm very grateful where with restaurants, it's all holidays and a lot of crazy nights. So we were
Mhm.
still at least able to enjoy some dinners together and the holidays because they didn't open up the factory. But I definitely got my work ethic from my parents and sometimes a workaholic in that sense. But now I really love and enjoy what I'm doing. And it doesn't feel like work because I'm able to help people learn how to build wealth through real estate and help them find or sell their home and get more into their retirement and getting into their dream home. So it's
Yeah.
been fun to be able to transition that versus doing something that's more laborious, like sewing clothes and such.
I think that's a big takeaway is what you were mentioning about it doesn't feel like work, even though I'm sure the pure hours that you're working are a lot. If you're working at something that doesn't feel like work and you're enjoying it, then that's the dream, right? So I think it's pretty clear in terms of how those childhood experiences transitioned into becoming an entrepreneur later in life. Were there any unfulfilled dreams from childhood that you can think of as well?
With my passion for teaching, my senior year of college, I got two job offers. One was for Teach for America, and my dad told me not to take that position because it doesn't really pay that well. And they're like, we didn't pay for your college education to go become a teacher. It's not going to even pay off the student loans.
Mhm.
So then I took a job at Oracle, and that was in tech doing sales. And at that time, I didn't love it, but I'm really grateful for the experience because I was able to meet a lot of different other folks.
So your dad said no to that Teach for America job, so you had to go for the more stable corporate role. But I think we're going to see a very clear through line in terms of that unfulfilled teaching role manifests itself into Zen Coast University. So excited to learn more about that too. Now let's transition to talking about your business. You started not just one, but two businesses, and you were at Oracle when you were starting up your first business. What was your experience like at Oracle?
At Oracle, we were put in different teams of selling different products, and they constantly added new cloud products, new middleware. And I had to service a territory, and we were just given, here are your zip codes, go sell stuff.
Okay.
And we weren't really given too much direction. We had to build our own list, find the companies, and do research on LinkedIn, stalk all these IT folks who might be the decision makers, and encourage them to purchase the solutions from Oracle.
Hmm.
And that taught me a lot of being able to be a hunter and figure out who might have a need and also communicate with all different types of folks. Being in the San Francisco Bay Area, we are surrounded by a lot of tech folks, and being able to just say, hey, I worked at Oracle and know what they're doing as a software engineer or hardware engineer really helps me out there. And being able to pick up the phones and talk to people, that's what we're lacking a lot in our day and age now, where everything is on social media and
Hmm.
text messages. People don't really know how to just pick up the phone and talk. So that forced me to make at least 50 calls a day and communicate with folks and build thick skin because people would just hang up on me or curse at me or other things. But I was like, okay, they're just having a bad day and it's not anything that's targeted against me directly.
If you told me to go call 50 random people on the phone today, I would be really apprehensive. Before you were able to develop that thick skin, what was that like in the beginning?
In the beginning, it was a little bit tough, but the great thing was everyone else that was started with us, we were in cohorts and they were doing the same thing. So we went
Hmm.
through that struggle together.
I'm also curious if you develop a certain philosophy around selling. Because when you think of salespeople, there's this stereotype of, oh, they're just greasing their wheels and ready to like sell you something. But speaking to you, obviously, like you're very sociable, you're very easy to talk to. So I'm curious, what's the mindset that you go into when you're in a sales call?
It's just definitely being able to know that I can help them and solve their needs and make their day-to-day lives easier. And knowing
Yeah.
that we're coming more on as a consultant versus a salesperson. So back then we would just say we're a
Mm.
tech consultant or Oracle middleware cloud consultant. And even though my license says real estate salesperson, on my business cards, it says real estate consultant and real estate passive income coach.
Hmm. I love that reframe because it's not like you're forcing this solution on
Mhm.
someone, you're actually solving their problem. Okay, you're at Oracle and you went through this pledging phase, this grind, and were able to get the skills of selling and talking to people. What started your first step towards starting up your own business while you were at Oracle?
Knowing my parents work so hard, working every single day of the week, long 12, 14-hour days, my big goal was to help them retire. And I knew a great way was to get them a house and come out here. But first, I had to
Hmm.
get my own house. I remember working late nights at Oracle and like the lights would shut down and I would just be working in the dark sometimes. And then people would come back late to pick something up and they're like, girl, what are you doing still working? I was like, I'm
Yeah.
building up my list of people to call for tomorrow so I can go buy a house. And I just really focus on that big goal and my big why of helping my parents and helping my family. And I think the first stepping stone was to be able to get a house here and build
Hmm.
that equity. I didn't really know that I could do it. I was like, okay, I want to buy a house by the age of 28. But then I just dug in, read some books, listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad while driving down to Las Vegas. I was like, okay, what am I doing going to Las Vegas and partying? Like, I want to be able to really shift my life. And that
Mm.
led me to buying a house at the age of 23 while I was still working at Oracle with not much money down. I rented out the other rooms in the house to my colleagues and was able to pay for the mortgage itself. So I realized, wow, this is a great avenue and great channel to build wealth. And I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, being able to get my parents to be able to retire.
So seeing your parents working a tough, laborious job, that really gave you your big why. With that goal in mind, you could have thought of different ways to get there. But what piqued your interest in real estate specifically?
So my parents did buy some real estate. We were in a single family home growing up, and then we moved into a duplex, which is a two-family home. And then we lived on the downstairs level. And I was like, why did we move into this house? It's smaller space, and there's people that's living upstairs. I can hear their footsteps and shouting.
Hmm.
But I realized that extra rent that they were getting from that unit above was what was able to help fund my college education, other things in life. And I think seeing what my parents did, even not speaking English, they were able to buy real estate. And I realized I don't know if corporate will get me there because when
Hmm.
we were trying to negotiate our salary bumps, we started at 45,000 base salary and even trying to get a $3,000 base per year salary jump to 48,000, we had a lot of rejections to that. And there was actually an Instagram ad that said a free 2-hour real estate webinar with this guy. He said he would make sometimes $30,000 within one day. That just opened my eyes of the opportunities in the real estate realm.
Sounds like there's this theme of fairness because even though your parents didn't speak English, they were able to make that extra income happen with that duplex. So, no matter your background, no matter where your starting point is, there could be opportunity in terms of building wealth through real estate.
Definitely. And that's where anyone can learn it. And I think that's where I see a lot of other real estate investors who are immigrants and English is sometimes their third or fourth language. And
Hmm.
they don't know people here, but because of the hard work and the education, once you get into it and the network, you don't have to be college educated to get into real estate. There's a lot of channels to be able to get in and become successful.
Yeah, that's amazing. The fair playing ground that you can start with. And also, there's this hustler mentality that we heard about from when you were a kid. Even though you were seated with that real estate experience, when you saw this ad, the fact that you really took that information and ran with it and made that your goal for how you're going to achieve your bigger why, that's really cool to see that common thread to when you're 23 and ready to get your first place. So you were working those late nights at Oracle with this goal of buying your first home. What happened after that?
I bought my first home and I loved it. And I wanted to get a next investment property. And I didn't have enough income wise to qualify for another property in San Francisco Bay Area, which is pretty expensive. So I
Mm-hmm.
started looking out of state in areas that I could potentially afford and was able to save $10,000 to put for a down payment into a next home. I looked into Huntsville, Alabama, because I listened to a podcast about real estate investing and they said it was the highest IQ per capita. I never heard about this place and I never
Yeah.
thought I would go to Alabama, but there's NASA out there, there's FBI out there. So there was a lot of intelligent forces out there. So I was like, okay, I want to follow where the smart people are. So I invested and bought a $62,000 house.
That's amazing. You mentioned you bought this home without even stepping foot in Alabama. Were you afraid of any risk in terms of taking on this additional investment?
Yeah, a lot of people ask about the risk, and I just realized it's all about mindset shift to it's a calculated risk of understanding where I know it's going to grow, it's going to build over time, and just to be able to get inspections. The great thing about the day and age is we have technology, we have FaceTime, we have videos. So we were able to take a look at it without actually having to set foot there and just building a team of a property manager and handyman out there to be able to take care of things while
Mm-hmm.
we were remote. So I think there were things that I learned as well. Like there are heavy rains. I had a tree branch fall down on the house. So it was a little bit of a nightmare, but I'm very glad and blessed to have gone through that experience because now we have a new roof that was covered by insurance. I sold it and then used the money that we gained. So that 45,000 was able to put for a down payment for a bigger home. Over time, we've been able to increase this value and get more cash flow close to $2,000 a month. So that's where it's like, okay, this is fun. I like was able to replace my income significantly
Mm-hmm.
just from the rental properties. The wealthiest people like Warren Buffett invest in a lot of real estate. They just know the formulas and we just have to follow it.
You make it sound so easy. How long did it take you from buying your first home to now having this fourplex investment?
So I bought my first home in 2016 and the next investment, I think it was just a couple years, got the single family out of state. That was less than a year later and converted it 2 years later into the fourplex.
And at what point in this journey did you decide to leave Oracle?
I left Oracle right when I bought my first out of state property in Alabama. I realized if I'm able to do this, I wanted to educate other people on being able to buy real estate. I was actually interviewing for a lot of tech companies such as Amazon and Google and would make it to the final round interviews and I wouldn't get the final cut. The only reason why I wanted to switch jobs was to increase my salary so I can buy more properties. I was like, okay, this is not working and my passion is around real estate and I would only be giving 50% into this new job anyways. And
Right.
my other focus was going to be in real estate. So I was like, why not go all in, go into a full commission position, have no salary and just work as a real estate agent because then I would really live and breathe it and just share what I was able to do to buy a house, what we call house hacking, renting out the rooms, paying for the mortgage to others.
I love your intention with wanting to share this knowledge. This is awesome that you were able to build this experience and portfolio for yourself. Maybe it comes out of that teaching passion that you showed as a kid. And also when you were thinking about that job at Teach for America, there's this natural desire to want to share this information and not just keep it to yourself. I think that's really beautiful. And providing the knowledge to build wealth is such a great way to uplift other people.
And there's a quote we always say if you want to go fast, you go at it alone. But if you want to go far, you go at it together. So being able to
Mm-hmm.
build more people in the community and do it together, it's going to be a lot more fun because sometimes it is lonely and being able to bring your friends and teach them how to build equity and not have to worry about finances as much. It's, hey, like we can enjoy life together. We can travel around the world and do what we're
Mm-hmm.
meant to do.
Yeah, for sure. So you left your Oracle job when you bought that first house in Alabama. And then how long were you doing the real estate business alone? You were working as an agent, but at what point did you actually start scaling and hiring other folks to join you?
So, my first hire was actually a virtual assistant, and I highly recommend that. So, we have a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and they helped with a lot of our management tasks, like online and computer, any documentation, helping me with my email, scheduling with my calendar, and even my social media. If I had to be on the computer, I would try to teach someone else that, and
Mm.
then they would take a lot more off of my plate. And then I just focus on being able to meet more people, other agents and investors and potential clients. And that gave me a lot more freedom to, okay, I want to bring others on and teach them how to sell real estate live in person. It was about 2 years ago where I was able to build my team officially from some virtual assistants to now 10 women. It's been a crazy ride. So that's on the real estate sales side. And then we were also able to build Zen Coast University.
Mhm.
That came out of, I just made an Instagram post of us signing on our 16 unit building. And then someone messaged me and was like, "Can you teach me how?" And we were always thinking about, like, we want to create a course or something, but that gave me the nudge. So this was December 2020 during the pandemic still. And we are like, okay, let's just create a course. And I hopped on a Zoom with her, figure out what her goals are, and just
Mhm.
basically let her know, hey, it's going to be this much money for coaching with us. And then she's like, okay, I'll Venmo you now. I was like, oh, wow, I have a client now in this. And then we were able to bring 20 students within 2 weeks into this cohort. So we've hosted a lot of retreats and other things since then. So it's been exactly about 2 years since we first started teaching people, and we have over 300 students now.
That's amazing and very much in line with who you are in terms of wanting to share the knowledge that you've built in building out your portfolio. So, we've heard about how you were able to scale this business from your Oracle job and leaving, and now having a team of 10 women. What were some challenges in terms of starting that business and even along the way?
So I did mention about things that went wrong of my initial first property going out of state and a tree falling. I also had
Yeah.
tenant not pay rent and other things as well, because I
Okay.
think he knew that I was an out of area young California girl. I was just trying to be cheap and save that extra $100 a month and manage it myself. But then I was like, okay, I need to actually hire a property manager. I need to just outsource and leverage people of what they are good at and being
Yeah.
okay to pay that price.
There's something about how to view money in terms of where to save money versus where to invest money. And I know from my experience with my culture growing up that saving money is such a big thing. But in that case, you learned about where you needed to actually spend money in order to make money long term. So
Yes.
that's interesting to hear about that little shift in mindset.
Yes, with Asian culture, my parents and grandparents would just stack their money and hide it in all different parts around the house and under
Hmm.
their mattress. I'm like, why don't you just put this in the bank and get some interest? And for some reason, they don't trust the bank and they don't trust the investments out there. So I think just really being able to shift that mindset. And it might be in China, you don't really truly own your property because the government
Mm.
owns the land there too. So I think that's where it's a cultural shift. When we're here in America, you can own part of the land. That's why it's called the American dream.
Oh, interesting. That's a really interesting cultural it's all dependent on the government policies that are there. So that's interesting to compare the two different countries. So you talked about your challenge with that Alabama home and learning and dealing through those different challenges. Were there any other challenges that came up while you were scaling your business?
Overall, it would be a bit lonely too. I just turned 30, but throughout my 20s with my friends, they didn't really get it. They're in their corporate jobs, they got their pay and they would work their 9 to 5, but I was working 5 to 9 p.m. afterwards on top of my 9 to 5.
Right.
And also weekends doing open houses, showing properties, and just negotiating. So it was a lot of long hours. And that was a little bit of a struggle of balancing my social life and figuring out what is that end goal. But looking back, I don't regret it at all because now my friends are at that age where they're reaching back out to me. A high school friend that I met when I was 13 years old, and he usually is more of a big brother type to me, but he actually reached out to me to ask me for advice of like
Mhm.
how to save and build wealth and help pay off student loans and other things. And I just wanted to give back so much. And I'm so grateful now. Before I would regret, oh, I can't go to the bars with you guys or miss out
Yeah.
on these events, but realize we're able to have deeper conversations now because I've
Hmm.
gone through that experience and they trust me and I'm that go-to person.
Yeah, it's like whatever you spend your time on has returns in different ways. And
Mhm.
you were very intentional about how you spent your time in your 20s. It's cool to see how that investment returns to where you are now. I also have another question in hearing your story and how you're able to have such a positive wealth building mindset in building out your business. Were there any challenges in terms of keeping up your confidence as you were going through all these different level changes?
One practice that I would really do is to start the day with affirmations. And I think that's where I would just speak things to existence. And there were times where I'm like, I'm new, I'm young, like I'm 23, 24, who's going to trust me with a multi-million dollar home? But
Mhm.
then I would just shift that, be like, I'm Jennie Locke and I'm 30 under 30 National Association Realtors. And I just kept saying that every day. I would share with people that was who I am, even though I didn't have that recognition yet. But I
Mhm.
just lived and breathed it and then was able to get the award, which is up there of the National
Amazing.
Association 30th under 30. So just really being able to shift my mindset whenever I would have struggles when had an angry client or other issues. I was like, okay, what is a gift in this experience and what is the world trying to teach me so I can better serve other people in the future or better serve myself as well too. And I always look at the positive sides of things. That's a big mindset shift. When starting my business and I was going, it was just me and another team member and I got COVID. I just burnt out so much because I was working so hard and showing homes in the rain and similar to my parents, working 14-hour days. But I realized my body gave out. And actually, looking back, I appreciate the moment. And I'm like, glad I got COVID because it caused me to slow down and
Mm.
let go and delegate the responsibilities to my other team member. And it gave her confidence to be able to take more responsibilities as well.
And I'm sure that even helped you as you were hiring even more people and had to let go of that control and letting other people do parts of the job that you were previously doing all by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And someone mentioned if someone can do just 70 to 80% of what you can do, let them do it because instead of you trying to do 100% of five things, they might not do it as great as I am. But it's like, hey, provide that framework. And now I actually have agents and team members who I trust more than myself to take care of certain clients because if I'm not fully present and jumping around, leading a team and doing all these other things, then it won't be of service to them.
Yeah. And even uplifting those people who maybe they didn't start out being as skilled or confident, but as you're giving them more trust and more responsibility, they're also able to build up their skills as well. When you were telling us about some of the affirmations that you had, I thought that they were ways to boost your confidence because they had already happened. But it's actually something that you've spoken to existence into the
Mhm.
future. You have this positive mindset and that you see a point of learning from every experience. What do you think taught you to have these perspectives and even the practice of affirmations? What gave you those skills and that mindset?
I really believe in coaches and just being able to surround yourself in communities that are about leadership and growth. So with
Hmm.
education, it's typically from preschool or kindergarten until college and maybe your master's, but we have to constantly learn and educate ourselves through different ways. And that's where I have multiple coaches who teach me on ways to become a leader. Also, my spiritual coach to be able to slow down and meditate and work through my traumas of being left alone as a child and my
Hmm.
parents never really being around. Those are things where having a coach guide me has been super helpful and investing in that too.
You mentioned surrounding yourself with all these coaches to help you on your mindset, on your spiritual growth, and even in scaling your business and starting your educational arm. I think that's really interesting because I keep going back to that teddy bear story, but coming out of your interest in sharing knowledge and uplifting other people, it's something that you give out, but it's something that you've benefited from too. So you've had that lived experience of growing your business and uplifting yourself through these coaches that surround you. So that's just like a really cool way to think about business and scaling business in the first place, because from the outside looking in, when you see someone's success, you're like, oh, that seems impossible. There are a lot of mindset limitations there, but the way that you're laying it out, it's more about how can you grow? How can you up level? And how can you do that with others in a tribe of people, whether you teach them or they are your teachers? This is a really beautiful way to look at both life and business that's much more approachable.
You're always either growing or dying. You want to constantly grow and learn more. And just being able to shift my mindset. I used to think $200,000 was a lot of money. And now it's being able to scale that 10x. Someone told me you need to invest 10% of what you want to make in your own self development, and then you'll be
Mhm.
able to get there. So that's where being able to invest now till every single year of my personal growth and also health too. Health is super important, making sure you take care of your own well being. So having a fitness coach, which mine is Orange Theory, so that really helps me out with my mindset to start off every day right.
That's awesome. You have these two business arms. Where are they now? What are you focused on? And what are you excited about?
Currently, we are growing in both ways. We're looking to bring on new team members on our real estate agent side because then we're able to help more people, help more families on buying and selling real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm.
We also have partnerships all around the country. And my brokerage, Keller Williams, is actually like international. And my vision is actually we just got married and plan on having kids within 1 to 2 years or so. But like by the time that they're going to go to elementary school, I would love to have my children have an international Asian experience. My goal is to be able to create a business where I'm able to also step away and have other leaders run it. And that's why
Mhm.
my team is called Zen Coast Homes versus the Jennie real estate team. Having lived in Singapore, Copenhagen, Denmark during college, I'm so grateful for that. Like, I want to make
Mhm.
sure my future kids have a similar experience too. So that's with the real estate sales side. And then let's say 5 years for Zen Coast University is to teach as many students and create a self sustaining platform where we have our students becoming coaches. Now they're teaching and giving back to new students and their friends and their network. One of our mottos is to be able to level out the playing field for others. Like a lot of us, especially as Asian Americans, we didn't have trust funds. Like our parents were
Mhm.
just stashing everything under their mattresses. So we don't have those properties being passed down to us, but it's like, hey,
Mhm.
how can we teach others the strategies of how to play the game? And it is real life monopoly in a way. By getting more real estate properties and also developing communities. So, actually going to full on residential real estate development, building places for people to have a safe place to live and
Mhm.
retreat centers. Like our teams are called Zen Coast University and Zen Coast Homes because we really believe on that Zen perspective of looking within through meditation, through breath work, and working through some of your insides. Everything out there is focused on the external validation of how many homes have we sold, how much do we make, and other things. But if you don't really work within the inside, you won't be happy. You might be
Mhm.
successful, but might not love your life in the way that you're meant to live. So that's
Mhm.
where we also plan on funding and supporting retreat centers around the world for leaders and folks to leverage these skills. Because
Mhm.
as I mentioned, it was very lonely being able to climb up and build a multi-million dollar business as a 20 something year old versus our friends who are going out to the bars and other things. So being able
Right.
to share those struggles with others too.
Yeah. Girl, you're a dreamer. You really know how to be very specific and inspirational in terms of setting these goals for yourself. I know we'll get more into that later, but I just love seeing you speak those words into existence. One thing that I wanted to dig into is that you mentioned those retreat centers and having those sessions to go within. So I know you actually had an experience earlier this year where you were able to host some sort of meditation retreat. Can you tell us more about that?
We had our wedding in Singapore and I wanted to lead a retreat or host another event after planning this big event in Bali for some of our friends who already flew out there. So we did a mind, body, and soul retreat in Bali, rented out a nice Airbnb, had about close to 20 of our friends out there. Instead of starting the new year with champagne and popping bottles, we started with our goals and intentions and just really understand some of the work that we needed to do deep within. So we did inner child healing breath work where you're over oxygenating your body and guiding you through a sound meditation to go through some of the pains that we were going through.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of us have parents who are working all the time, might not have been around for us because they have to pay for the bills bills and such, they had to make that choice, either put food on the table or spend time with kids, which at that time couldn't really do both. So it's for people to work through the trauma and realize, hey, it's not their fault and you can't be angry at your parents for your
Mm-hmm.
upbringing. And we went through focusing on what I love is setting your someday goals of what you want to accomplish. So my big goal before was to help my parents retire. When I was 23 years old, buying that first house, the goal was 28. I actually bought it at 23, but I wanted to retire my parents just for them to like not have to work anymore. I was able to retire my parents when I was age 29. So figure out what is your someday goal and then working backwards from that. So that
Mm-hmm.
really helped set a lot of great intentions for my friends and get them to shift their mindset. And now they're like building their businesses and side hustles and just so excited, realizing that they don't need to be tied to corporate anymore.
Wow, that's beautiful. Also, it's so generous of you after planning your wedding to put on this very intentional goal setting retreat for your friends. It sounds like such a beautiful experience. And in hearing how you think about all of this internal growth, spiritual growth, and understanding any trauma in the line of business that you're in, helping folks build wealth and building wealth yourself, you talked about how if you don't take that time to reflect, you might not be happy. I just love the two sides of that, because when you're looking from the outside and you see people that are successful and that have a lot of wealth, it could bring you a lot of happiness or it could bring you a lot of misery, right? Just depending on your intentions behind it and how you came to that point. And more money, more problems, right? You're not just focused on the wealth itself and the status of it. You're actually focused on building a life and growing and thinking about what your true intentions are and making that manifest itself in real life through this wealth building and resulting in this wealth building. So that makes you really unique in terms of being a real estate business person and a passive income coach. It's much more deep and profound than just face value. I wanted to congratulate you in being able to get your parents retired and buy them their first home in the Bay Area. How does that feel? And what is it like to have actually achieved that goal? And what was that journey in terms of making that happen?
That's got me up every single morning because I knew that was the goal and intention. And I had to do tough things like knocking on strangers' doors and trying to get them to sell their houses. But I realized, hey, I'm able to help this person behind this door potentially or make a new friend. And then they would refer me to other folks. And that led to the financial goals, a lot of emotional ups and downs. Getting my parents to move out here, they're so used to their ways. They lived out in New York City and they immigrated from China. So China and New York was all that they really knew.
Mm-hmm.
And once they moved out here, they're like, wow, I can actually sleep more at night. So it just made me feel a lot happier that they're so close as well. And it also makes me feel very confident of being able to build a family. My goal of having 3 kids does not scare me at all because I know we can financially support it. I can confidently say I have my parents' support to help take care of the kids. So it warms my heart. I'm just very grateful and happy to have them nearby because I didn't really get to spend too much time with them growing up. And I came out to college at USC and didn't see them for a long time, worked out here. That high school friend that I mentioned, he's also from New York and lives out here. And he said he maybe sees his parents 2 or 3 times a year max.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say they live another 30 years. So potentially, like, he can only see them another 90 times in the rest of their lifetime. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't have that happen.
Yeah.
I want to see them as much as possible. So I think that really put it into perspective for me of how grateful I am.
Yeah. And it's crazy how you talked about how you weren't able to spend as much time with them when you were younger because they were working so much and working to put food on the table. And you also had to work through this internal struggle with the fact that they couldn't be there for you as much given they were working so much. And it's again beautiful to see that because of this hard work that you put into building this business, you're able to gift yourself and your parents this time together physically in the same place and just for them to see your kids grow up and everything. It's really nice to see how you took those experiences as a child that were difficult, but you're now able to provide this gift for you and your family. That's really awesome.
Thank you. And want to share it with others too. Realize my journey into real estate was just in 2016. So less than 7 years ago. So you can change a lot and set your goals and be able to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time.
It's been great hearing about not just your business, but so much more about mindset and growth, which is really relevant for this section. I'd like to take some time to hear about your reflections on your journey so far. So I think I'm curious about what are some top of mind reflections that come up as you look back on your entrepreneurship journey?
To not take things too seriously. Yes, we have to
Mm-hmm.
set a lot of goals and intentions with my whole detailed planning. We're here to live every single day and live it presently and like don't constantly focus on the future. And yes, it's important to plan of knowing where we're going towards, but if you don't sometimes just look where you are right now, then you might fall into a big pothole.
Mm-hmm.
So just be able to take every single moment and shift it. Like, what is a gift in this moment? And what is it doing for me versus why is this happening to me? Being able to shift that mindset really helped me to think bigger and also bring other people into this journey because it is hard, but it has been a very rewarding process.
Yeah, I can really relate. I think a lot of internal struggle comes up if we try to deny reality and instead of taking what's happening in front of you as is, when we start putting shoulds on top of it, well, it should be like this, it shouldn't be like that. That's where just a lot of internal struggle that happens because there's a reality of what's happening and then you can decide how you're going to respond to that. I really like that. You're responding to these challenges with the mindset of, okay, this has happened, accepting that and thinking about what is the gift? What is the learning? What can I take away from this experience? Next question. Do you have any doubts, old or new? And if so, how do you address those doubts?
Well, we always wake up with a lot of doubts, like I don't have enough time or I'm not worth it. Am I an imposter? Especially like, stepping into leadership role and leading women who are also older than I am. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I had some fear around that, but I think just really knowing my self-worth and being able to know I do bring value to them on a day-to-day basis. So I have to like release those doubts and it's okay to be vulnerable and sharing I have these fears and wondering what are your thoughts too. So
Mm-hmm.
just not letting things bottle up inside. So I think that's how I address those doubts.
Yeah. Stepping into that leadership role, there's the visible act of you were first working on a business on your own to now you're leading a team of people. But I think there's also this mindset shift and maybe also how you define what it means to be a leader, whether you're leading other people or not. As you're stepping into this role, what is your view of what it means to be a leader besides the act of actually leading a group of other people?
That's a great question. And that's something I'm constantly learning every day. I would say I'm not a perfect leader in any sense, but I would say what I'm learning to really step into is figure out if we're aligned in a common goal. What do you want to accomplish outside of work? And
Mm-hmm.
being able to give them that pathway of, okay, this is the roadmap of what you need to do in work to be able to get you to the goals outside of work. I think also being a leader, I realize I had to set some boundaries too. I think
Mm-hmm.
working with friends and we're spending a lot of time with each other that boundaries could be blended. You're going to be a bit different from your best friend or your sister than with a coworker or team member.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to be okay. I don't need to be best friends with everyone. Initially, I would have FOMO of, okay, how come the girls are going to go drinking, going clubbing, and all that? Being able to let go of that. And okay, I have a role to play. And if I were out there, then there might be a blurred line.
Right. Yep. And I love that you're in that journey right now of learning about who you are as a leader and stepping into that. Last question. How have you grown through these experiences in terms of building out your business? And what have been some key learnings?
The main thing is to really focus from love and compassion. A lot of people, when they're scared of doing things, it's all out of fear. So, fear
Mhm.
is actually the lowest frequency out there, and love is the highest frequency out there. So, just coming from love constantly, it's like, what do I love about this moment? What do I love about this person? Even though they're like stressing me out, it's like, what do I
Mhm.
love about this? And always coming from love and compassion. So, that's where I've been able to really grow. I feel like my heart has been able to be more full from that too. I believe in the spiritual deity of Guan Yin. So a lot of Asian folks believe in the Guan Yin goddess of compassion and mercy. Also grow in my spirituality, realizing magic does happen as well. Like
Mhm.
when you speak things to existence, it does happen. I was able to get 30 under 30. Even at my wedding, like all the things were leading, it's going to pour rain, it's going to thunderstorm. But I was like, no, it's going to be okay. And it didn't rain. So I really believe in the power of magic as long as you put your heart into it.
For folks out there who maybe are not familiar with making magic happen in their lives, for people who want to actually start seeing magic in their lives, what's one piece of advice you have for people who are just starting out?
There's actually a book called Big Magic. So, be able to listen to that book has helped a lot of my mindset shift and going towards knowing what you want in life and focusing on the positives. So, what I mentioned is going from love versus what's going to go wrong. Don't even think about what will go wrong. I just know it's going to go well. And another thing that one of my coaches says is to add to the end of your goals or whatever you say or better at the end. So my goal is to make $1 million or better, or my goal is to lose 10 pounds or better. So just constantly adding just 2 words in my language every day has been very transformative.
I could totally see that being transformative because I think our brain naturally goes to or worse. And so it's
Mhm.
almost challenging that and really up leveling whatever you're dreaming up to be like, or it could be better. Why not? Right. I love that. Jenny, thank you so much for being with us today. We learned so much about not just your businesses, but your approach to business and life and creating magic. Where can folks go if they're interested in either learning more about real estate or learning more about your coaching business?
I'm on Instagram at Jennie Lock, JennieLok. And then at Zen Coast University is our platform of education. Or you can even just text me at 650-250-3050. Always happy to chat. I'm probably going to just give you a call because it's better versus texting. Happy to chat with anyone, especially in this community. Like you have amazing people that you have brought together. So I'm excited to chat with anyone here.
I don't think we've ever had anyone share their phone number as a final call to action. So I love that. Please text Jenny if you're interested in making any of your real estate dreams come to life.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Be Queens. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and follow us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay tuned for the next one.